Hello, my lovely people, and welcome back to the podcast. I don't know about you guys, but it's the end of August, and I've been feeling just depleted lately. Just, I've hit a threshold of exhaustion where it feels like no amount of rest or relaxation can fill the well. Sometimes it's just as simple as leaving my house and having to go to the grocery store fills me with this unshakable, uncomfortable despair about the way things are. And I think it's just okay to acknowledge that summertime can have low points. This season often gets conflated with joy and positivity and energy and sunshine, and there is plenty of that. But we've got to make space for all emotional experiences. And summertime isn't just magically omitted from feeling a certain type of way. Just like it's okay to feel excited and energized in the wintertime. The point is, it's okay to feel any type of way during any season or period of change. So, I guess what I'm trying to self advocate for is that, sometimes summertime can suck, and that's okay. But all this did have me thinking, and if you've listened to any of these prior episodes, you know that thinking is, well, kind of a problem for me. But it had me thinking, if we live in a universe designed by some grand plan or a god figure, so to speak, then why were we not given the ability to take an indefinite break from this existence? Because sometimes it just doesn't feel like 7 or 8 hours a night is enough to catch up against the endless onslaught of work and chores and socializing. And, it would be just nice to have the ability to maybe existentially hibernate, so to speak, so that you could come back to this place and give it all you've got. Again, these are just my harebrained thoughts and likely a reflection in my own self on how ready I'm feeling for some change, and you might be too. Any hoozle woozle, on to today's guest. This is part 3 of my series on OCD. If you were with us last episode, we talked to my own personal therapist, Medina Alam, and she really opened our eyes to the clinical definitions of what OCD is and how we can treat it in a myriad of different ways. And I really just enjoyed the opportunity to ask some deeper questions that I didn't get the opportunity to do when I was in therapy myself. So that was really helpful. And today's guest is something a little bit different in that instead of talking to a therapist, she is someone who herself has suffered with OCD and dealt with a lot of the same symptoms and rumination cycles that I have. So it was cool to be able to go from talking to someone who treats OCD to talking to someone who is affected by OCD. And in this conversation, we kind of loosened up on the reins a little bit. There's less talking about clinical terms or specifics around diagnoses or any of that, and just shared experiences. And something I learned from this conversation was that as someone with OCD, it can be really helpful to do deep dives like this and to share and to learn and to grow. And it can be equally as helpful to not talk about OCD all the time. So at the end of our conversation, we kind of just talk as friends and talk about life. And you know what? That is also really helpful and really healing. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest today. She's a writer for her own Substack channel called On the Verge. She is a meditation and mindfulness teacher. She is a powerhouse mother to her children, and overall, just a really cool person to talk to. So without further ado, y'all welcome Windsor Flynn.
We all are here together just to learn about ourselves and how we can take care of everybody else. Living on a planet that is circling the drain, we do the best we can to not just go insane. It's comfort and chaos.
Windsor Flynn, welcome.
Hey Eli, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you? How are you feeling today?
Good. I just had a physical, my annual physical, and I did it like right on time. So that's good. And yeah, everything's good. My kids went back to school. So I'm just chilling.
Yeah, I just saw on your Instagram that you sent your kids back to school today. Like, what is that? What's that like as a parent? Like, do you like your
Great.
kids?
I like them a lot.
So is it a sad thing?
No, I'm not sad at all.
Okay.
I feel great, but not like overly great. Like it wasn't like I was like excited to be rid of them or anything, but it's just time. I mean, we had a great summer. We chose not to do a lot of camps this summer because I kind of just wanted to hang out with them.
Right.
And we did that. We hung out a lot. We did minimal camps, and then we went to Hawaii for almost a month, and I had them every day. And then,
wow.
Yeah, we just went to the mountains for a week and like did a couple even play dates when we got back. And so for school to start today, we're all just ready. Like we had fun. I wasn't like freaking out that I was with them all the time, but it's definitely nice to be able to just do literally anything with minimal noise.
Yeah, that's something I think I take for granted. Well, I don't think I do take it for granted, actually. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But that's cool. Yeah, I'm glad you guys had a good summer. Sounds awesome. You went to Kauai too, right? Recently?
Yeah, that's where I'm from. So I went for a long time, like 4 weeks.
Oh, that's awesome. People that have never been to Hawaii or Kauai think that 4 weeks is a long time, but especially if you've never been, that's like the bare minimum you can enjoy yourself there. Is you got to be there a long time.
I know. It went by so quickly.
Yeah, by the time you leave, you're like, I'm just getting settled in.
How are you?
I'm good. It's funny, like this is my second interview on this podcast, but I was just like, preparing before it, and I don't know why these I get such pre-show jitters.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if you can remember back to like the days of dating, because you haven't dated in a long time.
No.
Probably, I assume.
I haven't.
But like when you're gonna FaceTime somebody that you've been talking to or whatever for the first time, it's like this, oh God. It's a cool feeling. It's exhilarating, but it's good to be here.
No, I can definitely relate, because remember when everyone was doing those Instagram lives? I mean, I think people still do them, but I don't. I would get
when you say everyone,
anxiety.
you were doing them too, though.
Yeah. So I was doing them, and I would get so anxious beforehand and at the start, and I don't know why, but yeah, like I've met some internet people like over phone and FaceTime, and I totally get what you mean. Like I'm always like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's the you can be as prepared as you want, but it's like the 5 minutes before that. I get that way at like the doctor's office too. I'm like, why is this person who's here to help me making me nervous? But I don't know.
Yeah,
it's probably
I
this
can
anxious
feel that
brain.
Too. Definitely anxious brain. Or like when they take your blood pressure, I'm like, try to relax. And I'm like trying not to be obvious. I'm like, I'm cool.
Yeah. And you actually like have high blood pressure because you're just freaking out at the doctor?
Well, actually, you know what? That has never happened to me.
Really?
Like
That's
other people
good.
are like, yeah, I always have to take my blood pressure 2 times because the first time it's like really high, but I feel like for me, I just like stop breathing entirely. So it's like barely
You
registering.
have like 0 blood pressure.
Yeah, it's like, you're dead.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, but things are good. And you had asked me right before we started this episode if I lived in Kauai or whatever, because that's where you're
Yeah.
from. I did on accident, if that makes sense. I was visiting my sister who lives there part time,
Mhm.
and it was February of 2020, if you can remember back to
Oh,
that
yeah.
time period.
Exciting.
Having a great time, enjoying the wonderful island of Kauai, and then I was supposed to leave on March 15th, which was pretty much D-Day for
Yeah,
COVID.
I
Yeah,
remember.
so I just canceled my flight on the spot, and I was like, "Oh, I'll just stay in Kauai for a couple more weeks and let this all pass. This is a great place to hang
Hmm.
out." And of course, as we know, it never passed, and Kauai shut down. And so I
Yeah.
just found a place to live in Kalaheo for like 4
That's
months.
where I'm
And
from.
really, oh, that's my
Hmm.
favorite. It's so like
It's the
tucked away.
best.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like
yeah,
upcountry.
yeah. So you grew up, born and raised in Kauai.
Yeah.
Do you have any friends or close like people in your life that are affected over in Maui right now?
No, I mean, I know a few people who are there and they're okay. One of them's a nurse, so she's helping people now, and her brother is a firefighter, so he's very busy at the moment, but they're safe. All my other friends are accounted for. I mean, I know like a couple people who lost their homes and
Mm,
have family members that are unaccounted for. But
geez.
personally, I haven't been affected by
Mm,
the tragedy.
well, yeah, it's just crazy. This isn't what this
Yeah.
podcast is about, but it is just like just to acknowledge
I
how
mean,
crazy that
kind
is.
of.
Is
I mean, it is so crazy and it's happening right now. And it's just one of those things that you never expect. And for me, my OCD revolves heavily around like natural disasters and things that I can't control. And for
mm,
a long time, it was about wildfires because California had
yeah,
that period where like it was just on fire.
yeah,
And I had a hard time going to the mountains. Like I didn't want to, like because they can start at any moment. And
mm,
right before, like when we got up there, I was like, wow, it's amazing how relaxing I feel. I'm like not worried about fires at all. And then my mom sends me that, do you know Maui's on fire? And it's like, what? No.
mm.
So that was just a
So it
weird
actually is
moment.
incredibly relevant. Yeah, because
Yeah.
never really thought about. I've never had my OCD's never focused on natural disasters or anything like that. I don't
Hmm.
think. Maybe actually it has like more of a fear of like an asteroid hitting Earth or something like that. So
Yeah,
it's kind of
totally.
similar, but never thought of like wildfires being an OCD thing. And that probably was really triggering because that fire literally started in like seconds or minutes, and then the whole town was gone within like an hour or something. It's insane.
Totally. And it's like you have safe zones, right? So like when I go to Hawaii, I don't worry about wildfires.
Right.
I like it's like a place where most of my OCD, like bears, wildfires, things like that. I'm like, I'm chill. That's not going to happen. So it will
Yeah.
be interesting to see if that sticks, um,
Mm,
because it was really nice to not have my OCD activated this trip in the mountains. Because
yeah.
in the past, as long as I can remember, probably for the past 6 or 7 or even 8 years, it's been so hard for me to go there.
Interesting. Yeah. So one of your compulsions is to create a sort of safe zone, like in your mind, as if you go to a certain place where bears don't exist, then you're good.
Yeah,
Which is true, but
I mean, it is
is it
true.
it's
But it's
true.
like that wouldn't be the compulsion, but more like the compulsion is to like, I would be constantly thinking of like, okay, now what do I do to prepare? So like all my time would be spent like imagining scenarios and then like developing plans to escape.
Mm, yeah.
So that's what I would be thinking about for even like months before I would go. And
Oh,
then
okay.
before Hawaii was like a tsunami thing, I would be really worried about tsunamis. But
Mm,
this summer, my OCD's been like I wasn't even worried about that. So it was just weird to me, like the summer that I'm not worried about stuff. I'm like, so lucky that there wasn't a fire on Kauai, because so much of Kauai, parts of the island are really dry too.
Yeah.
And there was the same kind of windy conditions, like, like anything could happen. And I wasn't even thinking about it.
Right. But also anything could always happen. So
that's why. But it's like, I usually don't know what it's like to not feel worried about it.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. You got to experience that.
Yeah, it's so chill.
The non-worry.
Yeah, it's like really nice.
It's very nice. It's very nice. It's a whole new world to experience.
I'm like, wow, this is what normies feel like. It just feels like this every day. How nice to be alive.
Yeah.
What an adventure.
Yeah. My theory is there are no normies, but we're extremely not normie.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So just to, I guess, catch everybody up, this is part 3 of a OCD quest to learn all there is to learn about OCD. And just before I talked to you, I talked to my therapist from NoCD, which was a really cool experience. And she kind of gave us the rundown of what is OCD in a clinical sense and what is ERP and how do we treat it, et cetera, et cetera. In this episode, I really want to focus on, you and I both have been diagnosed with OCD. So what is it like firsthand to experience it and et cetera? So let's go back to like your first experience that you can remember when you, I don't know how old you were, but realized that something wasn't right or that you were irrationally anxious or afraid of something. And what was the time period between that experience and getting diagnosed and treated for OCD?
Okay. Well, that's an interesting way to phrase it, I think, because so much of OCD and the disorder is that you're not going to think that it's irrational or weird.
Of course.
Right? Like there's that disconnect. So I didn't think that anything was wrong. I just thought that there were these like real things that I could do to help keep everyone safe. Like, well, I come from a really non-religious family. We're not practicing anything, but
lucky you.
Just like, yeah. When I was like 8 or something, 8 through high school, through even my early 20s. But like it started when I was 8. Like I had this thing before I went to sleep to kind of just pray for everyone, just to make sure that we all woke up in the morning, and it started off with like, oh, I hope my dad's okay. And maybe this is when my parents separated. I don't remember, but I'd be like, I hope my dad's okay. And then I would feel like the guilt, the guilt that comes with OCD. And I was like, wait, but now I hope my mom's okay. And then I was like, oh, wait, and my brother. And then it was like, so I'm praying for these people and hoping they're okay. But like, what if all the people I don't pray about? And the list just got longer and longer. And longer, like it started including my whole family, then my cousins, and you can imagine how long this would take because I am a Filipino on an island. Like, it's a lot of people. So
you got like the entire town of Kilauea. You got,
everywhere. And so I started coming up with like these loopholes. Like, I would include everyone. I'd be like, I hope like nothing. Eventually, it got shortened to like, I hope nothing happens to anyone. And then I was like, wait, no, nothing happens. Nothing bad happens to anyone. And then like even the bad people. It was just like going on forever. And then if I forgot someone, I'd have to like start over. And you can just imagine. But I kept that up for a very long time.
Wow.
And I don't even know why I stopped, but I think I was old enough. I was like 20 something. I remember even doing it in San Francisco in my little loft bed. And I was like, I bet I could stop, but I had to make a conscious decision to be like, I don't need to do that. I'm just going to go to sleep and I'm going to see. So I was doing the checking. I'm going to see what happens if I leave someone out. And now I forget who I sacrificed, but everyone was fine.
We need to figure out who that person was and
I don't remember.
Tag them.
But yeah, that was like one of the more mild ones.
Yeah.
And then before I got diagnosed, this is when I remember it started getting really scary. Like, I think I was pregnant or even before I got pregnant, but I was like really scared to go home and visit my family. I was like 23, 25 maybe. And I was like, oh my God, what if I murder all of them? Like, I'm so scared to go home for Christmas because I could just kill everyone. And I was like, that is so
How
weird.
could
But
you?
I don't know. I was so worried that I would like stab everyone while they were sleeping. And there would be this like awful Christmas murder. And it would just be so
Yeah.
terrible. And I was like laying in bed thinking about that, and it felt so real. Like, I thought the possibility was so real that I even considered not flying back. And I don't know why that I like, it just made me really worried. And I didn't tell anyone. I went back, and obviously I didn't kill everyone. But that was
Spoilers.
that was just like one moment, and that sticks out. And then there was a string of other things, more harm related. But I didn't know that anything was wrong really until like I didn't get a diagnosis until after I had already been pregnant, and then like had my son, and then he was already like 2.5, and then that's when I got a diagnosis. But by then it
Oh,
was like
wow.
by then it was bad. You can only imagine like how the harm stuff goes crazy when you have a tiny baby that like you could kill by
Yeah.
accident so easily, and then on purpose. Just imagine, it would take a second.
Oh, yeah.
So it was terrible. Like, even thinking about it, I'm like, oh my God, I can't breathe.
Do some live ERP right now.
Yeah. So that's when I was like, this is weird. And it wasn't that I thought it was weird or that I had a disorder, but I was just like, I don't know. What if I'm mental?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
Right. Well, because that's OCD is classified as the doubting disorder. So
Yeah.
when you're suffering with it, you're also doubting everything else. You get an OCD diagnosis and you're doubting that, it's like it extends everywhere.
Totally.
But yeah, that's, it's going back to your beginning symptoms with the prayers and stuff. It's interesting because I actually grew up in a very non-religious household as well.
Yeah.
And I sort of imposed religion onto myself as a young person. I kept a prayer journal, and I would write every single night in this journal, come hell or high water. Like, I would just be writing compulsions all night long. It'd be like, Lord, please, look out for me and all my family and this girl I have a crush on. And like, if we're meant to be,
Totally.
then please make it known. And like, if I didn't write in the journal, oh, bad times, no sleep,
I totally relate to that.
So it's funny. That's funny how, I don't know, I guess OCD's control need for like certainty kind of points us towards some kind of God figure or
Well,
something.
because
But
you have to think that there's something that's going to keep you safe, because if there isn't, with OCD comes a lot of hyper responsibility, and then it's all on you, and then you're like, excuse me, this is a crushing weight of things that I have to do. And then if you don't do it, then it's like everyone will die and it will be my fault,
and everyone will
like
find
I could
out
have done something, it's like, but then at the same time there's that wrestling with, but I don't actually believe in God. So am I like a fraud? Am I an imposter? Do I really believe in God, but I'm just full of shame because everyone around me thinks that it's stupid? And then there's like this religious crisis that happens.
Yeah.
So much, so many layers.
It can get really sticky and tricky. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay, then you kind of graduated, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, I graduated to harm.
Yeah, which is what OCD does for a lot of, some people maybe stick with the same subtype their whole life, and God bless them.
You know what I think that is? It's just like lack of awareness about like all the other things that are impacted by their OCD too. It's like, it doesn't work like that. And people can say whatever they want. People get mad when I say like, stop saying you have contamination OCD. You don't
Mm,
have contamination OCD. That's not like a reserved for a special spot in your brain. It's a
yeah.
pattern of the way that you deal with any thoughts or
Mm,
anything that causes any discomfort, and
yes. That's
but
actually
I don't know.
Medina and I talked about that in the last episode, was how, talking about all the different subtypes, and it's crazy that there are that many subtypes, that there's that
Well,
many
it's not even like
people.
a subtype. It's just like any kind of thought. You can say OCD after. It's like you don't have that. I have dirty tablecloth OCD. It's like whatever.
Right. And how the problem is not the thing itself. You're not going to change the fact that relationships trigger you. You're not going to change the fact that
Mm-hmm.
bears trigger you. Whatever it is, that's
Yeah.
not the point in treating your OCD. The point is the
No.
inner mechanism of your patterns in your brain that are going to
Yeah.
find something. Even if you get rid of bears off the face of the earth, you're still going to have OCD.
You'll find something
And
else.
oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so, while we can delight in all the different topics it takes, that's not really the point of treatment, that's for sure.
I know. And it's like, I feel like once I understood that, then the whole thing becomes so much less about what you're thinking and more about like, okay, how am I approaching this feeling? It's really
Right.
about a feeling. It's not even about the thoughts at all. It's not
Yeah.
even really a thought pattern. It's like basically like your inability to cope with having uncomfortable feelings and what you
Right.
do to make yourself feel better in the moment.
Mm. It's changing your relationship to the external forces that you don't have control over, as opposed to
Yeah, like
changing
ultimately.
the
And I feel
external.
like you have like kind of like a more understanding of this too, because I feel like you're like, like your vision is like out here. Like I read like the things that you're writing in your Substack, and I'm like, oh my god, he's really thinking about a lot of things. But like, there's lots of perspective, right? It's not just about this little thing. It's like at the end of the day, if you really want to get better with OCD, you kind of have to like change your whole worldview, like, and accept
Yes.
that you don't have control over
Yes.
anything except for like how you behave.
Exactly. And I think that's the key. And I think maybe the coping mechanism, like OCD is in itself a coping mechanism with the inability to accept that there's so much, and there's so much that's not in control. So we pick one thing that makes it easy. Like I haven't always written that way, or felt or
Yeah,
thought the way that I do. There was a time in my life where the only thing that I thought about or cared about was schizophrenia. Like that was the only
me
topic there.
too.
Yay! That was the only topic you could ever talk about, think about, write about, Google about. There was nothing else in the
Okay,
world,
so you're like deep into compulsion.
Oh yeah, like every day, all day for like a year and a half. Yeah,
Oh my god! So and that's a really scary one. I mean, all of
that
them are
is.
really scary, but that was particularly scary for me.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you if you had one, that has been your favorite.
Oh, with after my second baby, I couldn't even look at a tree without
Mm,
convincing myself that maybe it wasn't even moving, or like if I felt wind, I could have been making it up. I don't know.
yeah.
Like I was so doubtful that I think I really, well, my brain is still like, I don't know, maybe I was in a psychosis, but no one can confirm. I don't think my therapist was like, no, that's not how it works. But I was like, I don't know. Like maybe I was like so disassociated, There was just like,
Mm-hmm.
that was really scary. It was really scary, but
Yeah.
then I would have these minutes of feeling so unhinged,
Mm-hmm.
crying, begging to go to the mental hospital because I was like, I don't know, I think
Mm,
something's wrong. 15 minutes later, going to a preschool function, carnival with my baby in a carrier and my 4-year old, and talking to
mm.
grandparents and yeah, ha ha ha, laughing,
Right.
because it's a secret.
Yeah, and you have to hide it, and you have to be normal, and like, oh
And it's
yeah,
also because it's not really schizophrenia. It was like
right.
something else.
But only you know that it actually is.
Yeah, exactly. Like everyone's like, but
in your
you're fine.
mind.
I'm like, mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't know that
Yeah,
I'm secretly sinking through the floor right now.
exactly. But that it's like this thing about like masking, like and like always showing up how you're supposed to, and people are like, well, I didn't know that you were suffering or struggling. It's like I feel like people with OCD, I can't speak for other like mental health disorders, but I can only imagine like we all become so skilled at covering it up and pretending like
Mm-hmm.
everything's chill,
Yeah.
because like with the schizophrenia one, at least for me, the core fear was that I would have to be put away and everyone would know that I like couldn't cope.
Mm. And
You know
that's
what I
the real
mean?
fear, is like everyone finding you out as
Mm-hmm.
broken, wrong, evil, whatever the
Yeah.
thing is. Like, at least for me, I think it all comes down to this fear of like, they're going to all find out that I'm actually a terrible person. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. Sometimes it even comes into my dreams. I don't know if you have reoccurring OCD dreams or anything like that, but
I
I have
don't.
one that's it may not even be technically OCD related, but it's this dream I've had since my adolescence that I'm going to be put in prison for life for something I did that I didn't mean to do. And I just
Mm-hmm.
wake up in cold sweats like, "Oh my god." And I think it's that undercurrent like feeling that I think I'm trying to control with my OCD, is that I can't have people find out that I'm actually an evil person.
Yeah. And it's so not funny, but it's,
It can be
I
funny.
don't even know the word. It is kind of funny, but it's like, because people with OCD are not evil at all. Like you're the ones doing the most to like not be
Right.
a weirdo and
Yeah.
not hurt anyone. Maybe it's not even about finding out that you're evil, but maybe it's that people won't accept you. You're being unlovable or something. Because I don't think that I ever had this inherent feeling that I was evil. Even with the harm OCD, like I didn't have this feeling that I was evil, but I did have like the fear that like I could make a really big mistake
Yeah.
and no one would forgive me or
Mm.
understand, or I wouldn't be able to forgive myself or something.
Yeah. That's totally it. So with that, talk to me about, you kind of mentioned that OCD got really ramped up after you had kids. How is your how did your relationship to your OCD change when you went into parenthood, and how did you find ways to manage and go through treatment while also trying to be an effective parent?
Well, I didn't even know I had OCD until I had kids, because that's when I was like, okay, well, something's wrong. I have this fear that I could hurt someone, but everyone around me is saying that they don't think anything's wrong. And then I was like, well, I just had a kid. Maybe it's a postpartum thing.
Mhm.
And everyone around me was saying, no, you couldn't because you're such a good mom.
Mm.
You do all the
Just
things.
filling you with reassurance, and yeah.
Just no, just denying any experience I had of not feeling okay. It's like you can't
Ah.
have a postpartum thing because you aren't crying all day, because
Ah.
you are taking, because you love your kids. That's what people love to say. You love your kids. People with postpartum don't love their kids, and now it's like you don't
Wow.
know how wrong that is. It's such a
Yeah.
fucking fucked up thing to say.
Yeah, wow.
And I was like, okay, not the audience for me, because it's not going to work. But luckily, I found something, because I looked, you have OCD, you're really good at researching. So I finally just looked up some symptoms. And there was one that said OCD and anxiety. And this was like maybe 2% of moms get this one, not a lot. And I recognized every single symptom. And I was like,
Mm.
okay, so there's kind of something. And I just needed like someone to confirm it. But even then, after they confirmed it, I didn't actually go into actual OCD therapy. So my therapist gave me a ton of reassurance, enough that I was able to like feel okay. Like all I wanted to know is that I wasn't going to kill anyone by accident. And then I was like, good. And then I got
Thinks
pregnant.
I'm cured.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because I didn't know. And then I was just like, good. Okay. So anytime I think that, it's fine. It's not, it's whatever. And it kind of like made me feel good. But she also like suggested that I don't do anything that makes me really anxious, because, eventually it would settle down. It was just hormonal. So I like totally stopped doing anything that made me anxious. And then by the time my second baby was born, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go on the freeway. I could barely stay home alone without freaking out, especially because my symptoms showed up differently. Like, I wasn't scared that I was going to kill her, but I was scared that I thought she was the devil. Because I didn't actually think she was the devil, but I was like, what if I do think she's the devil? Because she had these green eyes when she was born, and I was like, oh my God, she looks so intense. She had dark hair and green eyes, and you know how people with light eyes, they look at you and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, wait, what is that thought? And I was like, do I think she's like weird or evil? And
little demon baby.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, what if I kill the demon baby or something? And then I was like, whoa, this is so fucked up. Because I didn't actually think that, but like, who knew? And then I was like,
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I'm like going crazy. Like, do the trees look weird? I just was psyching myself up real hard.
Oh, yeah.
And then my husband was like, well, maybe it's like the same thing that happened last time. Why don't you just check? And I found a different therapist, my therapist, and it said expert. And I was like, okay. And then I called her and she answered at like 8 p.m.
That's a good therapist.
Yeah. And because I left a message or something. And I was like, hi. I don't know. Like, I said all this stuff.
I think I have a demon baby, but I'm not sure.
I was like, it's real wild in here. I don't know. And my husband's a firefighter. And he worked long hours. And sometimes he'd be gone for like entire weekends. But I would do anything to get him to not go to work.
So you didn't have to be alone with the kids.
I would be like crying for days before he even had to go, being like, maybe can you call in sick? And it was really scary. And it was hard for me because, I am a really good mom. I take care of all the business. I always did. You could say I was a very high functioning
Yeah. Well,
person.
let's define good mom. Let's get that.
Yeah. I mean, like, and I think that's a whole other thing. I think there are things that make you a good mom. Not everyone's a good mom.
My mom's
not everyone when they're suffering is a good mom, but I was a good mom even when I was like suffering. I hate to say suffering, but like also because
you were suffering.
There's a certain level of shame that comes with like that word for me, but I still did all the things, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it probably made me feel worse because I was so stressed.
Yeah, because you're doing all the things, but you're also completely dissociated from the things you're doing because your mind is not present. And
yeah, totally. But once I got into therapy with the actual OCD therapist, it was like night and day. My recovery started to happen pretty quickly.
That's all. What did it feel like when you found your OCD therapist? You confessed all of the deep, dark things that you thought you couldn't say out loud, and like she treated you with compassion and understanding. I'm sure she probably was like, hey, you're dealing with OCD. Like, that feeling is so good, right?
It was really good. I mean, I was pretty bad. So I started off with like, twice a week.
Yeah.
And then once a week for a long time. And then
was this through NoCD or was it just a separate?
No, this was before anyone was even talking about OCD. This was before NoCD existed. This was in 2017.
Okay. So yeah, NoCD is, I didn't realize how new they are, but.
Yeah, they were like after like I think around in 2020 they were starting. Like I had just heard that he was working on it or something.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they did because I knew I had OCD, I think when I was 19. And kind of like you, I was suffering so much. At that time, it was relationship based. And I was dating the person that I ended up marrying, that I ended up unmarrying.
Wait. There's lots of things here.
There's a lot there. Yeah, but anyway, I was, dating this person who meant a lot to me. I was living abroad, so we were long distance. And, the sinking feeling of everything's great, you're meeting this wonderful person, and then the OCD thought comes in of like, you probably don't love them. They're
Oh, yeah.
definitely not for you. You're gonna just hurt them or whatever, all the thoughts. And so, of course, I'm, 19 and I'm just freaking out. And I would spend all night Googling, what does this mean? What, all the compulsions. And my compulsions led me to my diagnosis, like my self-diagnosis at that
Yeah.
time. I scrolled on some Wikipedia page about OCD, and you see all the, like you said, you see all those symptoms. And you're like, oh, I have all of those, which is kind of like weirdly euphoric when you see it.
Yeah. Because you're like, okay, so there's something. It's a thing. I'm not just the only one weirdo on the planet.
Yeah. And so, but that was 19, and I think I just got diagnosed when I was 26. So I think it just takes so long. You have to suffer. You don't have to, but when you have OCD and you're really attached to your reality, I think it takes a lot for you to finally throw in the towel and get treatment.
Yeah, you have to feel really bad. Also, because the treatment's not really easy. The treatment like that they ask you to do is like, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm so nervous about all this. They're like, cool, get a book all about it and read 5 pages. And I'm like, what the fuck? If I even, I'm like, if I even see a title that says the word in it, I'm not going to be able to think straight for weeks. So like, the exposures were really intense.
Yeah, exactly. So, oh gosh, was that you? Like when you were specifically suffering with psychosis or schizophrenia, OCD? If you saw the word schizophrenia, did you freak out?
Oh yeah, weeks would go by and I would be terrible. I would just be spiraling out. I couldn't
Yeah, can't
even.
see the word, can't say the word. Yeah.
No, it would. I would just have a terrible month.
Mm.
Like if I went to a bookstore and I was like, "Oh, this book looks good," and I'd turn the back and it was like about something, day ruined. I would even start to cry because I would get so nervous. And I'd be like, "Oh my god!" Just it was like a reminder. Like,
It's a reminder, and it also you do create those false safe zones where you're like, "Oh, I've been good for X amount of days. I think we're gonna be good as long as nothing happens, and then the thing you
mhm.
see the word or whatever, and it breaks that shell, and you're like, "Fuck, we're back in it."
Yeah. Well, because then it's also like if you think about it or if you see it, it's more, there's like this false belief that it's more likely to happen.
Yeah, or it's a sign, or you've jinxed yourself, and you somehow have the power to now manifest it into your own self.
Yeah,
It's we're magical.
totally. Yeah, I thought that, you know, I could bring anything to fruition with my brain.
Yeah, which is it creates an interesting problem in today's world, I think, when there are a lot of new age type of things, which I mean, I get down with meditation and spirituality, but there are some things that I'm like, ooh, that's really not healthy if you have OCD, where it's, honey, you just got to
Yeah,
manifest the perfect lover. They'll
just
just, if you
think
think
about
hard enough.
it.
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I not married to Leonardo DiCaprio and living my best life on a fucking yacht in
Well,
Capri?
do you want the actual answer to that?
Well, I'm too old for one.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's some issues, I think, in some of the new age stuff on Instagram where people with OCD can easily get thrown into a spiral just by watching a reel about.
And any people, you don't even have to have OCD to have disordered thinking.
Right. Exactly. So I was listening to you on another podcast, and you were talking about some of
Oh
your
no.
your ERP experiences. What was that like? What are some, fun or crazy stories of starting ERP? And it's an uncomfortable therapy inherently. um
Yeah.
I think in this one you were dealing with fear of the highway.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And
I still hate that. But I got really good at it for a while when I was doing my ERP. And then once I moved away from my therapist, I was like, yeah, I'll keep working on that. And then I still don't drive on the freeway. So it worked. The thing with ERP and OCD is like, it works if you do. Like, if you're working on it, sure.
Yeah, if you commit to it.
Yeah, but the second you're like, easy, it'll just come right back. I'm like, no biggie. I've convinced myself that I can live my best life without driving on the freeway.
I mean, I agree. I live in a small island where there's no freeway, so I think I'm living my best life.
Yeah.
But if I go to the city, I can drive, so.
Yeah, see, that's a difference. I like won't do it. I'm like, ew, thinking about it makes me so nervous because then I'm like, no, I'm a really bad mom. If there's an emergency, I don't know if I could save them because I'd have to drive. Oh my God, what the hell? What would I do?
Maybe you couldn't.
Yeah, I'd probably kill us all by accident.
I listened to this one podcast one time about OCD, and it was this mental health guy, and they played a game that was called like One Up. And it was like an ERP game where one person says intrusive thought and the other person has to one up it.
I know, I hate that game.
Yeah. You want to play?
I knew you were going to ask me.
We don't have to do it. But, I just want to like.
I mean, am I a weenie if I don't do it? I don't want to do it.
You're,
I don't know.
What was your daughter's voice memo? A penis weenus?
Yeah. Well, she was like, I'm a vagina. That's what she said. She named it penis weenus, but she didn't even say the word.
Classic bait and switch.
Yeah.
The feminist agenda. She's already on it.
Oh my God. I can't believe I thought that.
But yeah, like ERP, what was, you said you started seeing progress pretty fast.
Yeah, well, I did a lot of script writing. So that was kind of hard, but it was good. And I don't know if you had this, but like I suffered a lot from magical thinking. Like I thought if I wrote something down, it would come true.
Yeah.
Or if I would say something out loud. So like even the act of writing something on paper was like a big exposure for me. So we worked up to that, and it was good. But what I did notice was even if I was doing exposures like about something, like another thing, like a more tangible thing, right? Like something else that made me nervous, like that maybe wasn't so dangerous to me, like letting my kids choose where to put the Christmas ornaments, right? Like something like that would make me struggle internally because I'd be like, oh God, like even doing things like that, even though it's not directly related to any obsessions, would help when it came to the other obsessions.
Yeah.
Because it's all just about getting used to feeling uncomfortable and knowing that those feelings will pass.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something we talked about in the last episode too, was that ERP is not just for people with OCD. And it's not just for when you're struggling badly with OCD. Like I would consider myself relatively in the recovered camp, which whatever that means. But
like mostly you feel pretty chill.
Yeah, like mostly I'm just practicing ERP on a regular basis in the moment when things come up. So
yeah,
it's like ERP has been helpful for me even in like you said, minor situations where you could go in one direction, but you just decide to allow it to not,
Yeah.
So
like,
it's really cool. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, do you ever, when you're driving, have the little voice that's like, I don't know if you should go that way. And then you're like, I should listen. Maybe I thought that because, something bad might happen. Maybe I should go the other way. And that instance, like you can either choose to go the other way, which is like, avoidance and just kind of like reinforcing that you need to listen to every thought. And then the ERP would be to just go that way. And so,
see what happens.
I'll just go that way sometimes, and I'll be like, "Oh my God, I'm doing it!" And it's just like a little practice,
Yeah, it can be like a little side quest. It's like a little adventure. You're like, ooh,
yeah. I'm like what's
OCD. Yeah, OCD has presented me with
choose
this
your own
adventure. Yeah.
So those are just like little ways to do it, like in the moment.
Yeah. Now I so I still get existential thoughts at night or something like that of thinking about the universe ending or whatever it is, and I'm just like, I'll just go there. I'm like, all right, take me where you want to take me, brain. It's fine. I'm along for the ride.
Yeah, it takes a while to get to that place.
Yeah, and then the ultimate is not being attached to that place too, because you might
Yeah.
have times where OCD is particularly present.
Mm-hmm.
And so not being attached to like, well, now that I've reached peak ERP status, I can't go, I can't let it slip or whatever.
Yeah. Well, something happened to me in the mountains. I mean, nothing happened to me. I happened to myself. But like, I was laying in bed and I woke up, and because there's a train that runs like through Truckee and Donner and whatever, and it goes through where we stay, which is up in Grey Eagle and Feather River, which is 4 hours northeast
Okay.
of San Francisco, like past through the Tahoe Forest, whatever. There's a train and it goes in the middle of the night, but you can hear it start. Like you can feel the vibrations. Like I'm a really light sleeper and I can like pick up currencies. No, not currencies. I wish I was picking up more currencies. No, I can pick up like frequencies,
Pick it up.
And I could hear it coming from a long time away, like where I could just kind of feel the rumbles and like a little bit notice that there was some activation. And like I knew it was from the train, but I didn't know it right away. And I was like, God, what is that noise? And then I had the thought, half sleeping, like, what if it's like an alien spaceship or something, or some weird thing happening in the forest? And then I was like, oh, that's weird. And then my brain was like, what if you go to find it? And then I was immediately up and I was like, oh my God. Yeah, what if I just walked out of this room in the dark? What if I walked out of the cabin in the middle of the night and like left to go find this weird sound in the forest and like disappeared and didn't come back? And you know when you get the feeling in your body, like it feels like an actual urge. Like I physically felt like I had to like maybe hold myself in the bed to make sure I wouldn't just walk out and like lead myself into the middle of nowhere. And I was like, wow, that hasn't happened in a while.
Did you go?
No, I didn't. But I was like, okay, I'll just go back to bed. I was like, yeah, what if I did walk into the woods? And then I just fell asleep. But like in the past, I would have stayed up till like 4 a.m.
Yeah, and like try to find the meaning to what these thoughts were all about. And
yeah, and then I was like, oh, that was weird. Yeah, like it's such a physical thing for me, OCD. I can feel it in my body.
Yeah, like a sense of lack of control over your body, or like just a anxiety over,
like just overwhelm. An awareness.
Yeah.
Well, anxiety and overwhelm, but even with my body, like, if you think about your pinky toe, you can like feel your pinky toe more, and you're like, whoa, like you're so aware of your pinky toe. Like I get so aware of my body that I start to think like it's my body like wanting to move, but it's just that I'm paying attention to it for like any sign that it might betray me or something.
Yes, totally. Oh man. Yeah, I used to suffer pretty bad with health related OCD. Mm-hmm. So, and my sister actually kind of suffers with that. And seeing her kind of more presently going through it and trying to, because health is a tricky one, because obviously we have bodies and like they do things and things happen to them. Like you just went to the physical, something could have come up. Yeah. And yet we still, we have to take care of them, but not obsess. But when you obsess, when you think it's relevant to like think about your like, pelvis or whatever, for like 20 hours a day, you think you're like, you start to feel things, because it's like meditation. When you focus on your breath, you focus on your lips or your hands, you feel your hands moving, you feel like all the tingle. Sensations. Yeah, so you're like, well, there's cancer in there, like it's happening right now.
Yeah.
So it's a very real thing, but also not at all.
No, definitely not. So how are you doing? So I feel like we're talking a lot about me.
Yeah, you're a guest on my podcast. I'm interviewing you.
It's like in therapy, you're like, so how are you?
That's such an awkward moment, and they're just like, yeah, I'm okay, I'm good. Anyway, back to all of your neuroses.
Yeah, because it's like, am I talking too much? Am I talking too much about myself? And they're like, you're such a weirdo. You literally pay me to listen.
That was actually a cool part though of having my therapist on I haven't been to her in 2 years. This particular therapist. So to have her on and to interview her was so fun because I was like, "Oh, I'm the question asker now." But
That's kind of cool.
yes, and I'm still the question asker today.
Okay.
So tell me about Team Maybe. That's like I think that's
Oh my
how
God.
I discovered you on Instagram was somebody shared a Team Maybe thing and I was like, "Oh, that's super cool." So tell me about it.
Well, I was just thinking about Team Maybe actually because I don't do it anymore, but I still wear the hats.
Yeah, they're super dope.
I mean, I still have the what is it called? The trademark. So
Oh,
I'm like,
nice.
should I keep doing Team Maybe? Because I always like have these new ideas, but
I feel like you're a project person, aren't you?
yeah. But
Like
for me,
start
talking about
projects, you get the
OCD,
trademark.
yeah, talking about
Yeah.
OCD is just like so exhausting. I mean, I can do it today because I don't like, but I was talking about it every day,
I
like
know.
all day long for so long, and it's just like,
Yeah. It gets to be a lot. Like I was going to ask you that too so I discovered you on Instagram. You've got a few followers. And
yeah, I'm thinking about blocking everyone and going private.
I support it. But don't do that until you share this
Until
podcast
I
next
promote
week.
your podcast.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. And then we'll both just go AWOL.
Then I'm just gonna disappear.
Yeah. But that's how I kind of discovered you. I think No CD or somebody posted one of your pieces of apparel which say Team Maybe on them,
Yeah.
which is super cool. It's just an embodiment of ERP practice, which is accepting that whatever you're thinking about and obsessing about is a solid maybe.
Yeah.
Like maybe you are gonna get eaten by a bear. Maybe it is an alien in the woods.
Yeah, it's a classic non-engagement response.
Right.
Which is great for disarming your OCD. It's a good tool.
It's a cool way to engage, and they're really trendy stuff. And you don't do it anymore. I'm talking it up, and people are like, "Where do I get one?"
I know people ask me. I really was having fun with it, but it also felt weird to, as I started to get better and feel better, to like constantly talk about how hard OCD was so that I could like sell stuff. Because at the end of the day, it all costs money to make. And I don't just make it. I mean, lots of people do make things to just give away, but not me. I don't like.
Yeah,
I contribute to society in other ways. Like,
sure, you've got a bottom line to protect.
Yeah, like I'm not trying to like spend all my money and give things away for free. So there's a certain amount of marketing and promoting and like selling. How am I trying to be like, hey everyone, I have OCD too. Buy this hat.
Yeah.
Part of it, I was like, I don't know. I mean, it's good. I just felt icky about it.
Yeah.
But then I also, part of me wanted to make nice stuff because so much of the stuff that's out there that's like, mental health stuff is it's crap. All these things are made in sweatshops. Like this $7 sweater or $7 hat was made by some starving kids somewhere for like 10 cents. Like, how can you sell that?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No, I feel that like conflict between wanting to do a project that is important to you and that has some sort of identity wrapped up in it and that you think can like help other people, but then that existing under capitalism and being like, what the fuck? I'm pretty sure this is ruining the planet. I don't know.
Exactly. So I was like, well, I don't want to do it cheap because I wouldn't wear it for me. So why am I gonna wear this plastic sweater that is likely gonna like
unravel,
not be good for your health, and someone had to shit in their pants to make it for you.
Oh my god.
That free, at that price. It's like, have you ever thought about why this fucking sweater is only that much money? Because I don't know about you, but I know how to sew, and fabric is not cheap. It takes a while to do that shit. Listen, there's a lot of people who are being taken advantage of so that you don't have to spend a lot of money. And I just can't do it.
And then your apparel program to like support OCD ends up becoming an obsession in your own self.
Exactly. And then I'm like, what was supposed to like unite people and be like, yeah, like we can do it together is now, well, my profit margin isn't high enough and it's taking a lot of time and effort. Like,
Yep.
so it turns out I am more of a businesswoman
Right.
than an advocate. And I think that's okay.
Maybe.
But both. Well, also because then I also am like, I stopped doing it. So, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You're not just a businesswoman. You
Yeah.
stopped that business because it was interfering with your ability to be a effective advocate in your own heart. So
yeah, and
I think
just
that's
feel
a
like
good
it's
balance.
not that authentic. Like I would love to make stuff and sell it to people who aren't buying it because they're suffering.
Yes, that's a great idea.
You
Although
know
I
what
do think,
mean?
as someone with OCD, when I initially saw it, I thought it was cool. I'm glad you came up with it. It's kind of like I wish there was gang signs for mental illness.
Right.
You know, because the
I
team
know.
maybe was kind of a way to.
Like maybe I can make a handkerchief
Ooh.
because those are really cost effective.
Yeah, and like if you wear it in a certain pocket, it means you've got
Yeah.
bipolar or OCD.
It's like I'm compulsing right now.
Yeah, if it's on the right side, like don't come at me right now.
Yeah, deep in rumination.
Yeah, probably not safe.
Yeah, that's so funny.
That leads me into another question, which is, yeah, what is that? What is your current journey with all that? Because you kind of amassed a certain following, blah, 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 through your advocacy, through your association with Windsor Flynn, a person who suffers with OCD. And now you aren't suffering as much and you don't really want to always just talk about it. And I totally get that. So how are you kind of just even not even for Instagram or social media, but in your own self, like how are you starting to disidentify with that whole identity that you built?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a struggle because also as a stay-at-home mom, it felt great for me to be, known for something that had really nothing to do with my family and gave me like a sense of purpose, and it kept me really busy. So I wasn't just like, I'm not doing anything,
Yeah.
And when I first started to feel like it wasn't really serving me anymore, I had a hard time disengaging from it because I felt like, the ego boost that I got and the validation from doing a post that people really resonated, like did so much for my self-confidence and worthiness that stopping it, I was like, no, what do I do? I don't know.
Yeah.
And so that's been kind of hard. But like a couple of years later, like I was just thinking today, I might just delete the whole thing. Because so much like all this like rebrand or whatever, like I don't really identify with it anymore. And there's so many other things that interest me and that I want to talk about, but like all these like weird things like pivoting and stuff and like using the audience that you have. It's like so weird to even think about it like that. And, like people expect a certain thing from you when you talk about mental health. Like I can't even be myself in my stories.
Which is like the opposite of mental health.
Yeah. Which is like, like some people will be like, well, you posted this thing and it wasn't that nice. And it's like, well, you know what? I'm not nice all the time.
Windsor, you're posting too much about hotties.
Yeah. Or it's like, are you making fun of this person? And today I just blocked someone because I was like, yeah, I fucking am making fun. I was making fun of that person and it's okay. I'm allowed to do that. So I just blocked them and
it's not okay.
And it's like, so much pressure to do everything right all the time. Like who in their life hasn't made fun of anyone? And like, not even in a super hurtful way, but like you laugh at jokes all the time. There's like memes of everyone. Someone is at the butt of every joke. And it's like,
well, that's how real life is. That's how real life is when you're with your friends and whatever, and you are all joking about things. Like we don't repost the things in real life to our friends. Like, hey, did you know that, I'm trying to think of some quote that gets posted on Instagram. Like, the beauty reflected on the outside is really as much as you're feeling. We don't just go up to our friends and share that shit.
No.
Or whatever, like I have deep conversations with friends too. But there's this like weird vacuum on social media that if you start to get followers or whatever for a certain reason, then you're somehow this impenetrable force of good. And if you say things that aren't
Yeah.
only good, then you're letting people down, and that's just bullshit.
Well, exactly. And it's like, I don't want to be like, oh, I have the right to say mean things to people. But it's like, whatever. If I can I laugh at lots of jokes, and I laugh at myself a lot. And like, there's just this weird thing that, like, especially with mental health, like, you're expected to be like always not
Always
say
on, always
anything.
moral. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, sorry, no.
Yeah. And I think that's
I think
actually,
certain things are funny that you might not. Period.
and I actually think that's like a I don't want to say a sign, because signs are like a not really good word to use for people with OCD, but I think it's a
Yeah.
good reflection on where you're at in your OCD journey, actually, because at least for me in the past, if I said something that I thought offended someone or hurt someone or whatever, I would beat myself up so bad and just feel so wrong and dirty. But now, on the other side of having my OCD better managed, I'm kind of like you. Like, I'll say things that are a little like, should he have said that? Or like, if you're
Yeah,
in
probably not.
whether it's social media or public, and it's like, it's a little edgy, but I don't really take it back because I'm like, I don't know. Because I have to disidentify from the thought that this word that just
Yeah,
came out of my mouth means I'm a bad person or a good person or any of that.
exactly. And like that everyone has to like you or approve of you.
Right. Yeah, no.
At least that's how I feel. I'm like, people are going to think that what if people think that I'm just mean? It's like, well, listen,
Some people will.
I don't know. Yeah. And like, to
You
be
know.
clear, I'm not like super mean. And it's not like I'm like making terrible, off color jokes.
No. I'm here for I like your post and your transformation. It's good. It's good stuff. But I also think, as like, if you're gonna be an artist or a writer or whatever it is, you're gonna share things that a lot of people agree with and a lot of people don't agree with.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna have the courage to step into the role of like artist, creator, whatever it is, you got to have the courage to be criticized. And I think that's what makes
Mm-hmm.
people not share a lot of things or not be artists, which is okay. Whatever that means. You can just go do your creations in a blank room and never show them to anyone. That's totally fine too.
Yeah.
But if you do want to share poetry or share writing or whatever, like, you got to be all right with how people are going to react to it one way or the other.
Totally.
So you're a writer, right? You like to
I mean, I
do
do
writing and
write often, lots of different forms. But yeah.
what led you to start a Substack? What was like the motivation to
Well, like the idea was that I was going to stop posting on Instagram and like just write what I wanted to write about. And then I was like, wait, I should like promote it. And then I just was like, well, the only thing people respond to is this thing. And then I get sucked back into it. And I'm like, what am I doing? It's just so stupid. It's like,
and then you're not
like,
writing because you're Instagramming?
Exactly. I'm like, this is so dumb. Like, so that's why I was in the shower. I'm like, I'm just going to delete it and I'll feel so much better, because the whole thing is like every creative thing I do revolves around this like imaginary audience, because so many people have used that word. It's like a buzzword. Well, you've built this audience. It's like, I don't know what that means. Can you stop saying that? Because it's weird, and
it
it's
implies
like,
that people are always watching you.
yeah, and it also implies that they're there. It's like, well, you have to use that. So transform all your content and your art to what other people want. And I'm like, what world are we living in? Like, I can't think of anything like more suppressing, whatever.
Yeah.
I just of like creativity, and it's like.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do a Substack because I like writing, and what I write. I was like experimenting with short stories and screenplays.
Yeah.
And I just wanted the consistency of a regular newsletter, but it turns out I'm not a very consistent person.
Turns out you like the consistency of when other people write newsletters consistently.
Exactly. I will read other, but then I don't even read them consistently either. Sometimes I'll be like, I'm like, I don't care. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, I really like this. I'm glad I read it.
I'm a professional bookmarker. I'm like, oh, totally going to read that. But after I scroll on Instagram for another 30 minutes.
Exactly. And that's why I think it should be deleted too. I'm like,
yeah.
How? And then I was like, how can I troll people and tease whoever I want? And then I'm like, why do I need to do that? I'm like, get a life.
I'm here for it.
Well, so much of my life is my kids, and I don't want to share them.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want.
You don't want to tell them their names or like social security numbers here.
Yeah, I don't want to like show where we go every day. Like my life, this is where we go. It's like no, so a bunch of no, I don't want to. I'm not interested in that. And it's like, well, that's my whole life. So looks like I have nothing to share. Like I'm not going to go do a weird activity just so I can film it and put it online.
Yeah.
It's like all the things that like I don't want to curate my life so that it makes sense for like my weird avatar that exists.
Exactly. And there's people doing that exact thing and like making a lot of money on the island you're from, actually.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's just
we're not calling anybody out, but I'm just saying.
No, and you know, if you can do that, great. I'm so happy for you. And also a little jealous. But I just can't do it.
Because you don't have to live for that, and you can go hang out in the woods with your kids and just hanging out in the woods and picture aliens coming to you at night.
Totally, because that's actually so interesting. I'm like so excited that the government said that they're aliens. Not that I necessarily believe what they say, but just that what I can't get over is that people like they said it, and I think they're expecting people to be really like, oh my God, and no one cared.
Yes, that's
like the best part. I'm like, what is going on in this world? Like the world is so terrible that no one gives a shit that you just like told us this secret that you've been hiding for so long.
They waited too long, you know? It's like when
it's like who cares?
Yeah, it's like when you're gonna surprise somebody with a present or whatever, but you wait too long and then it's just awkward and you're like, oh, it's not even not even Valentine's Day anymore. Yeah, no, I hope aliens, I hope it's real. What I hope is that they came here and they saw what we were doing and they were like, oh, fuck no, and they just bounced.
What I told my husband, I was like, so the good news is the aliens have been watching us, so they know how badly we're struggling with climate change, and they're going to rescue us before it gets really bad. And he was like, is that what you think? I'm like, well, I hope. Best case scenario. Yeah.
I think they have a list probably of the people they're going to rescue. I don't think they're going to just, you know.
It's all the people that recycle.
Yeah, only people that recycle, and probably that guy that you left out from your prayer. And then
yeah.
They're like, oh, we feel bad for him. Like, he got screwed over by Windsor.
Probably. No, he already got abducted.
Do you miss the beach?
Yeah, I do. I mean, actually, I live on the coast here in San Francisco, so we get the beach.
Yeah, what's it like? What's the beach like there compared to Kauai?
I don't even go.
Yeah,
that's how it compares to Kauai. I'm like, well, San Francisco's really cold. Right now it's warm, but like normally it's hovers at like 58, probably even 52. 54 or maybe
my God,
like 62, 63 would be a warm day. Today, I think it's 66 or something, and that's like really hot, 67.
We're talking about the air, not the water.
The air.
Oh my gosh.
The air is cold, so the water
Why
is
have
really
I never
cold.
known that you guys are living such a
dismal,
cold reality? I had no idea. Although there's times where it's like 95 here, and I would love that.
Wait, where are you?
North Carolina.
Yeah, 95 is really hot.
Yeah, well, we're on the coast too, so that helps, but it still is very hot. But yeah, I live on a very small island off the coast of North Carolina. It's Outer Banks. You ever watch that Netflix series, Outer Banks?
That's where you live?
Yeah.
Why did I think that was Florida?
because everyone thinks everything happens in Florida.
I love that show. Wait, is there alligators there?
Yeah, there are, but not like probably with any prevalence or relevancy to what that show may have.
Yeah, there
That show is
wasn't.
absolutely not anything like where I'm from. Not
I'm
filmed
sure.
here, not yeah. There's no factions between the locals and the rich kids. Like there aren't rich kids here. We're just
Yeah, everyone's poor actually.
yeah.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
god.
but well, I've taken enough of your time, but I did want to ask, just going back to OCD because I know you love it and you love to talk about it.
Yeah,
It's your
such a nice time in my life. I love
yeah,
thinking
we
about
love to
it.
reflect, a nice fireside chat. um what's something that you wish most people know about OCD that they probably don't?
Oh, okay. I don't know. Well, I wish that people, besides like knowing what it is, right? We all have heard now what OCD really is, and we're all aware
Yeah.
of all the different ways that it can present itself. But that the recovery, it's doable. It's
Mm.
not like, well, it's like, yes, it's in the top 10, like, what is that list? It's like
Top
one of
10
the
most
worst.
debilitating illnesses, I believe.
Yeah, it's high up
Yeah.
there. And like, I wish that people knew that it's also like really treatable. It's one of the most treatable
Yeah.
illnesses.
Mm.
And you can do it with therapy, and it's very effective. But not every therapist is going to do the therapy. Not every.
Crucial. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just like go to any old therapist. Like, it does unfortunately cost a lot of money
Yeah.
to get the therapy.
It
So I
does.
don't know if that was even helpful or not. It's like, you can get better, but as long as you have the big bucks. But it's like,
No, that was helpful.
but it is really treatable, and there's great books out there. The Jonathan
Yes.
Grayson book, he details over a lot of his information is probably, some of his information is probably a little bit outdated by now, because there's so much new research coming out about OCD. But the way he like outlines doing the exposures, so helpful.
Yeah.
And then John Hirschfield, all his books are just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
The Harm OCD book was like kind of triggering to read, but if you can read that, that's like an exposure in itself. It's so amazing. And then just like, I wish people would get off the internet is what I wish. Just choose one or two books by the authors, take the information, internalize it, and do that, and then you're done. You don't need to keep learning as much as you can all the time on the internet and every day. Like, cut that shit out, and then you'll probably recover much faster. That's what I think.
I love that. Yeah. And it is crucial to acknowledge that not just going to trademark therapy is going to be the only way, or like is going to be the way, because you might get a therapist who only knows traditional talk therapy and they're going to feed your compulsions so much.
Oh, it's so terrible.
Yeah. So you want to really find a therapist that is familiar with OCD and that is familiar with ERP or a similar therapy that can do that if you're
And
going
even
the therapy route.
ACT for OCD is
Yeah.
great too.
Acceptance and commitment therapy, which is maybe it's like
Is it
ERP for
commitment?
like, or accept. Let me look it up. ACT therapy.
It is acceptance.
Acceptance and
Probably
commitment therapy.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's really good. And ACT and
It is.
ERP go really well together. And even meditation is so helpful. Lots of people are like,
Yes.
I have OCD, I can't meditate, and they love to like spread this narrative that if you have intrusive thoughts, like you can't meditate, and that's like not true. If you have intrusive thoughts, you probably should meditate because it like
Yes.
helps you to disconnect from your thoughts.
Exactly. You get to be the witness of the thought as opposed to the thought itself.
Yeah, like the whole practice is like a great partner to ERP and ACT and all that stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of that, as we kind of wrap up, I know meditation is another one of your fun projects you launched into the
yes.
world. Talk to us about your meditation practice.
It's a silent meditation practice. It's called the Being Meditation. It's from the One Giant Mind. And it's like kind of like a mix of transcendental and Vedic meditation, because you do use a mantra, and you practice it twice a day, 20 minutes. It's really good. I loved it so much that I was like, I should teach this. And so I do. I can do it privately. I have like one-on-ones that I teach, or I offer group courses also. The next one is coming up.
That's awesome.
Like next week.
I'll definitely get the links to how people can find ways to join into that, because that's, again, just ERP, ACT, whatever you want to call it, is essentially kind of meditation, and letting things arise and not reacting to them. So we were talking about the cost prohibitiveness of therapy in America, and that's one way, if you do it right, if you hold yourself accountable, to start practicing these things without the high cost of therapy. So
yeah, totally.
You're not just damned if you have OCD and you can't afford OCD therapy. There are a lot of options.
Yeah, because there's even ACT books too, and there's like OCD workbooks. Like you can do it from home.
Yeah, you can do it. That's what we're trying to say.
Not maybe. Yes. Yes,
you can do it for sure. This is a final little question I'm just asking all the guests, is what is something right now that is giving you comfort amongst the chaos? And it could be anything. It could be Leonardo DiCaprio. It could be something deep.
Yeah, I love that guy. Comfort in the chaos. I don't know. I've really just been enjoying like hanging out with my family and, just really paying attention to them. And it's been nice to connect with my kids, like without having to, not everything has to be like a big special deal, right? If we can just like actually like be present with each other, it's like so comforting. I really just been enjoying those little moments.
I love that. I'm sure your kids really appreciate that too, because kids are so perceptible. Well, I want to say they do. I have no idea what it's like.
No, I think they are.
And they're so perceptible. They know when you're like paying attention to them or not. So I'm sure that's...
Yeah, they can tell.
They're going to end up being better kids because their parents paid attention to them, I think, and hopefully not become...
Hopefully. Narcissists.
School... I can't say it.
No, don't say it! Oh my God. No, it's just like...
Are you sure you don't want to play the ERP game?
I totally forgot about that. Thanks. Now another school year worry.
No. Maybe.
Okay, we gotta go. It's too much.
Yes, it's getting to be too much. Thank you so much, Windsor. This has been so fun just to sit and talk. And thanks for your...
It was so nice to talk to you, actually, for the first time.
Yeah, actually.
Not through like text or whatever.
Yeah, it's been great. And you've been a great guest. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your whimsical knowledge.
Cool. Well, thanks for hosting, and I'll talk to you soon.
That was Windsor Flynn, everybody. I hope y'all enjoyed it as much as I did. I'll be posting the links to her Substack writing column as well as her meditation courses in the episode notes below. And I'll also be sharing some links to the books that Windsor had mentioned if you want to start working on some OCD treatment exercises on your own without the high cost of therapy. All right, guys. Well, that concludes the OCD series and the introductory few episodes of this podcast. Stay tuned for more awesome guests to come. And as always, really appreciate it if you subscribe to the podcast, give it a rating, and just reach out with any feedback or questions you might have. And take care of yourselves the rest of this summer season. Give yourself lots of time, space, and love. All right. Until next time, peace.